Good afternoon. Senate Finance Committee is now in session. We will be voting on several very important bills, and I hope we can get through our list prior to time to return to the floor.
So we'll start with a concurrence. This is Senate Bill 149. This is the bill that makes permanent an exemption from the insurance premium tax for the Maryland Automobile Insurance Fund. The House amendment just makes a technical correction to the bill.
Move favorable.
Okay. Any discussion on the motion? If not, all in favor, please raise your hand.
It's not on the list.
All right.
Concurrence.
It looks like that's unanimous of those of us who are here. Okay, thank you.
Okay, next, before we get into the bills on the list with my name after them, you have some more concurrences. The first bill is Senate Bill 35. This is the prevailing wage bill that reduces the threshold to $250,000 and makes it 25% or more in state funds. The House amendment to the bill struck miscellaneous grant programs. The Senate just passed the House bill with the same sets of amendments, so I would think you'd want to concur to be consistent.
Okay, second? All right, any discussion on this motion? Not ready for the question? All in favor, please raise your hand. Yeah.
This matched the Senate and the House.
You vote. You actually vote to concur,
yeah.
not with the amendments, but with the actual concurrence. So.
If I'm against the bill, I vote no.
Yeah, you vote no. Yes.
Okay.
This is 45, right?
35. Senate Bill 35. We're not on the list yet.
All right, just a minute. Let's be sure what we're on. The bill that we're on is which? Okay.
Yeah.
All right. Now, all in favor, please raise your hand. We just want to be sure everybody is. Okay, you got the number? Yeah. All right, all opposed, please raise your hand.
Okay, now I know I took the right.
Okay. Thank you. Thank you.
Okay, and for your information, it's very difficult to get bills that are in concurrent stage on this voting list, so we bring them up separately. That's why they don't show up on the list.
Yes, you have a question?
Yes, thank you, Madam Chair. David, so the House struck what you said miscellaneous grants. So those are the grants that are like bond bills or in a capital budget.
They're a category of bond bills,
Right.
but miscellaneous grants aren't legislative initiatives or Senate initiatives. They're a variety of individual capital grants that go well beyond legislative and Senate initiatives. So the purpose of the amendment offered on the floor and taken was to exempt Senate initiatives and legislative initiatives, but miscellaneous grants includes a whole host of other types of projects.
No, I'm clear. Most of them are in my district. The Baltimore Museum of Art, the Walters Art Gallery, the University of Maryland Medical System. So, but there was a threshold that was in the bill. And what was the threshold?
$250,000. It's currently $500,000. With this bill, it moves down to $250,000.
Gotcha. Okay, I just want to be clear what I'm voting
right.
on. I appreciate it. Thank you, Madam Chair.
Okay, the next concurrent, well, actually, it's not a concurrence. This is House Bill 261. This is the electric fence bill. So you voted the other day to amend House Bill 261 to be the same as Senator Klossmeyer's Senate bill, which would, the House on the floor added an exemption for an electric fence to keep out deer and even elk if they ever come back to Maryland.
Right.
And the House wants you to recede on that position and take their position on the House bill, which was to keep that exemption in there for these low electric fences.
Senator Jennings has a problem with that.
All right, Senator Jennings.
So I spoke to Colby Ferguson from Farm Bureau, and they actually want to keep that amendment in there. They think that it makes it clear that, ag fences are exempt from this. So my motion would be to
To
receipt from our position and go with the House version, as per the Farm Bureau's request.
Okay, so that's the motion, and we've got a second. Any discussion on that motion? All right, if not, all in favor, please raise your hand.
Okay.
I was just following Senator Jennings' lead on it.
Okay. All right. Anybody opposed, raise your hand. Okay.
Okay, so you're going to recede, and there'll be fences that prohibit elk from wandering into Maryland's property.
Guys, we
Okay,
make it hard for members of the public who are trying to figure out what we're doing if we're all talking at once. So let's stick to the agenda.
okay, now we're on the list. So if you go to page 2 of the list, starting with House Bill 45. This is a bill that's been amended that has amendments to make it identical to, why isn't the Senate bill up here? To Senate Bill 138. This is a local collective bargaining bill for the libraries. So you have a bunch of amendments in front of you which conform, and I didn't really want to waste all this paper, but it conforms the House bill to the Senate bill as it passed the Senate. So if you adopt these amendments and send it out, it'll be identical to the Senate bill, and we have the support of the county senators on this bill.
Okay. Is there any discussion on the motion? Oh, we need a motion. All right, Senator Klossmeyer. All right, do we have a second? All right, it's been moved and seconded that we conform this bill so that it's identical with Senate Bill 138. Okay, all in favor, please raise your hands. Okay. If you're opposed, raise your hand.
Can I pass again? I passed on this.
Sure, you're a free agent. Thank you. Okay, so the amendment carries.
Okay, the next bill on your list is House Bill 1154. This bill is identical to Senate Bill 801, which passed the Senate unanimously. I'll refresh. Okay.
Do we have a second? All right, any discussion on that motion? If not, if you're ready for the question, all in favor, please raise your hand. Okay, that's everybody. Thank you.
Okay, the next bill on your list is House Bill 1210. This was discussed yesterday, and there's 3 sets of documents in front of you. The first is the same reprint you had yesterday on the Corporate Diversity Board, and then there's 2 additional amendments. One is from Senator Jennings, and another one is from Senator Hershey. I'm not sure which order they are on your desk, but depending on how you want to proceed, you can take them up together, or if you want to take them up one individually, that would and then start with the reprint and then the 2 amendments from Senator Jennings and Hershey, respectively.
Okay.
Okay, so if you recall, the bill requires that entities in the state of Maryland who derive some state benefit, which includes a state capital grant funding totaling $1 million, state tax credits totaling $1 million or more, or the receipt of a state contract that is competitively bid under state procurement rules of $1 million or more, must have certain representation on their boards or in their mission support underrepresented communities. These communities are defined in the bill, and so an entity may not qualify for state benefit unless the entity is able to demonstrate that its membership is that has unrepresented communities in their board, or they support unrepresented communities. The Department of Commerce, along with the Office of Small, Minority, and Women Business Affairs, must develop, maintain, and post publicly a state equity scorecard that compiles diversity data for each entity on the membership of underrepresented communities in the entity's board and the support of underrepresented communities in their mission. They also must adopt regulations to carry out this section, including directives for state agencies and entities to comply with the requirements of this section. There's also, in addition to the report requirement under the property tax article, that they must submit to SDAT, and it adds that in addition to all the other requirements these entities must submit to SDAT to show they're in good standing with SDAT, it would add that if the person submitting the report is an entity that is subject to the requirements I just mentioned, the report shall include the diversity data required by regulations adopted by the Department of Commerce and the office. And the bill actually doesn't take effect until July 1, 2022, so it gives Commerce and the office plenty of time to develop these regulations. There are several amendments. There was an amendment added by the House which took out sole proprietors from the requirements of the bill. And then if you go to page 3 of the reprint, there's 2 additional suggestions. One would take out a limited liability company owned by a single member, and then a privately held company if at least 75% of the company's shareholders are family members. This is the same language that applies, that takes out folks from the reporting requirement under the real property article to report to the boards. Those folks with that same type of family arrangement on their boards also don't have to submit that report. So that would be the first set of amendments on this
Okay.
bill.
Can we get any action on this? Senator Hayes, then Senator Reedy.
Thank you, Madam Chair. I want to move the reprint with amendments. Favorable. Yeah, just this one, just the reprint.
Okay.
I second moving the amendments.
Wait, which specific amendment do we have before us?
Right now you have the one that adds a limited liability company owned by a single member or a privately held company if at least 75% of the company's shareholders are family members. That's the first set of amendments in front of you.
Okay. I think we already had an amendment and a second on this one. Okay, any discussion on this, any further discussion on this motion? All right. Senator Feldman?
Two amendments, the single member LLCs and the family.
Right.
We-
Not on this amendment. Are there going to be some further discussion, or are we just moving the whole bill, reprint?
No, I think they're doing it
Okay.
one amendment at a time.
Right, okay, I'm sorry.
Because this amendment, as I understand it, is for the particular amendment of the 3. Okay, all right. All right, all in favor of the motion, please raise your hand. Okay, that's unanimous.
Now there's an additional amendment offered by Senator Jennings. And the reason you have the reprint, this will help if you have the reprint in front of you. If you go to page 2 of the reprint, Senator Jennings wants to change all the $1 million thresholds to $3 million. So that's Senator Jennings' amendment.
Well, it looked like it might die for lack of a second.
Well-
Senator Jennings?
So I guess if you need it, I'll make a motion to move favorable on this amendment and then like to discuss it.
All right, we've got a motion and a second. All right.
So the issue with
it's
this bill is
changing
$1 million is not a high threshold for work for the state.
now. Well,
And, you know, there's a lot of very small companies that can do $1 million worth of work. You know, I give you, you know, there's feed companies out there that are selling grass seed to the state that, you know, easily $250,000, $300,000 just in the springtime throughout an entire year might hit that. And it's, you know, they're small companies. So what I'm trying to do is say, hey, let's get to a real threshold that's where you're
okay,
trying to get
any-
these bigger companies. So that's why I'm going with
okay,
3
Any
million.
further discussion on this motion? All right, if you're in favor of the motion, please raise your hand. Okay, all opposed? Okay, that amendment fails. Okay,
Is offered by Senator Hershey, and if you go to page 3 of the reprint, the current language in the bill says the Department of Commerce and the Office of Small Minority Business Fair shall develop and maintain and post publicly a state equity scorecard that compiles diversity data for each entity. Senator Hershey wants to modify that and say compiles diversity data for each entity receiving a state benefit under this section. So it would narrow that requirement.
So we would have less information. Okay, Senator Hershey?
Madam Chair, this amendment is specifically related to the letter that everybody should have received today from Don Fry at the Greater Baltimore Committee that spoke specifically about this. And their points are the GBC is concerned about the logistics of collecting, monitoring, and reporting on the vast number of entities that would be impacted by this provision. And he says, according to the State Department of Assessment and Taxation, approximately 430,000 Maryland entities would meet the definition that's defined in here. So it was, one, a concern of being able to effectively handle this type of information. But he also goes on to say that it has been repeatedly advanced that only organizations that seek state contracts or grants would be impacted by the bill's provisions. So I think that this has been the commonplace during the whole conversation about this bill, but it just wasn't clarified until we started talking about it yesterday, which brought forward this letter. So that's why he is saying, again, that requiring scorecards or public scorecards for all 430,000 entities in Maryland could prove to be costly proposition. And based on that type of information, and I think what we believe the intent of the bill to be is to really only have to have the companies that are receiving the state benefits have a scorecard, not every single business entity in the entire state of Maryland. I would ask that we basically just approve this amendment with the clarifying language.
Let me ask you about something that's occurred to me, that a lot of businesses that are doing a good job in terms of demographic outreach and so on might be proud to be on such a list, and they'll get the extra recognition by members of the public for doing
Madam,
so. And
I would say businesses have every way that they want to express that, if that's important to them, through social media, through their advertising, things of that nature. The fact of the matter is this bill was very specific to receiving benefits from the state and having to go through every single entity in the state of Maryland and have a diversity scorecard on them. I just, as we're hearing, especially from the Greater Baltimore Committee, that was not the intent, or at least they believe that was never the intent of the legislation.
Senator Feldman?
Just a couple of thoughts. First of all, the 430,000 is before we took this amendment. I suspect that 430,000 is a significantly smaller number with the two amendments we just put on. But that aside, on this scorecard, I thought where you were going, Senator Hershey, is I'm looking at this idea of a mission, the idea of a mission. Because when you look at the bill, and this, we can have a discussion about it, we're talking about support, basically this provision about support for underrepresented communities in the entity's mission. So I'm thinking of like a company, I don't know, I can think of any, like a painting company. Like what would the painting company's mission be? Like you may not have a mission statement. So how would you get a good scorecard rating if you don't have a mission? I mean, I really honestly just trying to understand like what's scored exactly. For a company like that, can you get a good scorecard if you don't have a mission by any kind of traditional measure? I'm just asking the question.
This doesn't apply to very small companies.
Well, I mean, I don't know. When you say small, I'm not sure. I'm just asking a real basic question. How do you get a good scorecard or a bad score? What's incorporated into that score if you're a company that doesn't have like a well-defined mission? It's this language. I'm looking for some answers on, in all candor. I mean, it's not here to. You have to
Senator-
demonstrate
think-
support for an underrepresented communities in the entity's mission. Just kind of, what does that mean?
I think you're right, Mr. Vice Chair, and I think that's some of the vagueness that's in this bill, that they request certain things, and then, as you said, the support of underrepresented communities in its statement is again somewhat vague. So you'd not only have to have all this scorecard information compiled, you'd have to then have someone determine if that support is relevant to whatever this scorecard looks like, which again, that portion of it is even not defined. And Madam Chair, I'd go back, I mean, you know, this scorecard's only evaluated by the state if you're going to get one of these three benefits, the state contract, the tax credits, or the grants. That's when the scorecard is supposed to be evaluated. If you're not applying for state contracts or tax credits or grants, then what's the purpose of having the scorecard for a company that's not seeking any contribution or any benefits that the state provides?
It would occur to me, a lot of people simply are proud of the way they run
Then
their
they have
businesses.
every capability to do that advertisement on their own and to state it, not some database, that, you know, scorecard that's in a SDAT database that nobody's going to
Okay.
look at anyways.
Okay, we're going to go to Senator Reedy, Senator Augustine, Senator Battle.
Yeah, I just think, Madam Chair, in
or
this amendment,
Senator Klossner.
I think we've got to be a little careful with the power of the state being used to try to, you know, a list like that. It's one thing if we're keeping track of something when people are getting state tax dollars. I'm not sure I'd like the idea necessarily, but at least it makes some sense that we want to know that, much like with our MBE stuff, the MBE program, we want to know that, you know, that there's a certain amount of diversity and reach in our programs. But to have the state, this seems like more of a clarifying amendment to say that we don't want the state just, first of all, I'm not sure that's a good use of our state staff time, state employee staff time, to be trying to keep track of this. And what if you inquire and a business refuses to give you that information? Like, what happens then? So, I mean, to me, it's just sort of seems like a lot of record keeping for not much point to it, and it could easily be misused or twisted in a way that would be unfair to an entity because they supposedly aren't diverse or because they're not on the list, which must mean that they're an awful organization. I mean, you could see people trying to spin that or twist that. I think it'd be better to just clarify that it's for people who are getting the tax credit or the state funds.
Okay, Senators Augustine and Battle, and then Klossmeyer.
Thank you, Madam Chair. This report is very important in the sense that I think that we, in this year of equity and inclusion, we are looking for a level of transparency in order to understand where we are, to know where we would like to go. If we don't know where we are, we don't have a way to get to where we would like to go. We collect information. For example, the reason why I was late here is because I was talking about information on adverse childhood experiences that we collect. We collect data for lots of things in order for us to be better informed when we're making public policy decisions for the betterment of all of the people of the state of Maryland. That, for me, is what this report helps to do, why it is important, and why I just think that we should absolutely collect the information in the form that was sent to us by the Speaker. Thank you.
Okay, Senator Battle.
Thank you, Madam Chair. So I don't disagree with my colleague about collecting information. We did that 2 years ago with my Bill 911, which collected information on diversity of gender. But this fiscal note, which has been revised, specifically says, in order to qualify for specified state capital grants, tax credits, or contracts. So is the bill about what the fiscal note says, or are we making it broader so that it covers 430,000 companies? I think we need to do what the fiscal note in the bill's intention was, and that's for companies that are trying to spend state or collect state money.
Okay. All right, Senator Klossmeyer, and then Senator Hayes and Senator Reedy.
Yes, I guess, am I on here? My question is, maybe David might know, and I just was checking, did we get any information from Commerce? A letter, like the other bill that we have put
I don't recall
forward
seeing
and-
anything
and-
in the files we got in testimony from them. I don't have my computer with me, and
I mean, I just was checking, but I didn't see it, and the only reason I say that, because they came in at the last minute with our manufacturing bill and said it was almost $1 million, so I don't know how much this is going to cost.
Okay, Senator Hayes.
Thank you, Madam Chair. Earlier this session, and you all remember, I withdrew a bill that affected commerce. The bill was really to identify, there was a significant amount of funding that was distributed amongst business organizations throughout our state over the summer when we weren't in session. A lot of it fell short of reaching, minority businesses, small businesses, or whatever. And especially with the various clauses that they had around first come, first serve, it disadvantaged a lot of small businesses and businesses that were struggling. In this legislative session, we've made changes, and part of those changes were motivated by the responses from the department that, well, we don't know what the demographics of those organizations was because we're not required to do it by law. And so as a legislature and as a state government and trying to make decisions on where we invest state dollars, we need that information. Also, as a consumer and as a person of color, I want to know where I'm spending my money. I want to make sure that organizations that I'm spending my money with are investing and have some type of mission to disadvantaged communities. To the point that the vice chair raised earlier, in an example of a paint companies in our history have been the biggest perpetrators of lead paint poisoning, which has devastated communities throughout the state of Maryland. And so any attempt that a paint company would have to right those wrongs of their history would be a step forward in the right direction. I think having this information available for consumers and for the state of Maryland to make the right decisions for those individuals or companies that are investing in diverse communities, especially those who are disadvantaged, is a good step in the right direction.
Okay, Senator Reedy, then Senator Feldman.
Just as a follow-up, maybe I think I may have been Senator Augustine, I think, talked about where, knowing where we are and where we want to go. I guess my question here is, where are we saying we want to go? And is it the job of government to help consumers, like to say, we're going to keep a list because you want to know who's investing where? I mean, there's a point where government can only go so far in trying to enforce things onto private sector businesses that are not engaged with the government. Like, again, I understand the argument that if we're giving tax credits or tax benefit or whatever, that's one thing. You say where we want to go. I mean, I think we all want to see more opportunity for everybody in the state of Maryland and for groups that have not been. We clearly have issues with poverty in pockets of our state, so we want to see that change. But this seems like a very ham-handed way to just say, well, we're just going to start compiling lists of who we deem to be diverse or not. And I got to tell you, the standard of, this maybe gets in another part of the bill as opposed to the amendment, the standard of, going back to support for underrepresented communities, I mean, that could mean a whole lot of things that's really not defined. So I would say this amendment is good because it just says, look, we're going to start with, we're saying the bill wants to do a number of things that, are pretty big changes. So why don't we start with saying if you're getting a benefit, as outlined in the bill, we're going to collect data on that. Because and that makes it easier even on the collection side, because you already have information on those people that are getting some sort of, particularly if they're getting a state contract. So I think it'd be good to put the amendment just to make it very specific what we're targeting in the bill.
Senator Feldman.
I'm not talking I'm still honest. I just want to make sure I understand what the bill says. I'm really maybe pick up on Senator Bottle. because Senator Hayes' point, and I thought was the point in our last session, was that when you take state dollars, the state absolutely has a role and an ability to dictate policy in that way. So I just want to be clear. The bill as written is not just applicable to the companies that are taking grants, contracts, tax credits. That's apparently the point of the amendment, but I just want to make sure we have clarity, because as Senator Bidle pointed out, the fiscal note definitely suggests that we're only talking about companies that are taking state money, and therefore, to Senator Hayes' point, I think Senator Augustine's point. So Dave, can we just clarify the bill as written applies well beyond those companies, just so I know?
Section C is its own subsection in the bill, and it specifically applies to an entity that receives state's benefits. So they can't be eligible for a state benefit unless the membership of their board includes underrepresented communities, or they have demonstrated support, which will be determined by Commerce and the office. They have demonstrated support for unrepresented communities in the entity's mission. So it's up to Commerce and the office to determine what that criteria is when they come up with their regulations. And then subsection D is a separate section that I do not believe references the benefit part. It just says that they have to report this information, and that's the assumption that Commerce has taken in their fiscal note, and it's also so that's their assumption. It would apply to all businesses, and obviously some folks have interpreted that way.
Okay, Senator Hayes.
With all due respect to some of my colleagues and like the role of government versus business or whatever, it shouldn't be lost on it that every business that is established here in Maryland have a relationship with government in some way. They may not be receiving some type of benefit or tax credit or whatever, but every business have to be registered through, whatever it is, whether it's the Secretary of State's office or whatever. And so the information is there. There already, some reliance on regulation as it relates to these businesses. What this bill, the way I read it and what has been interpreted by counsel, just simply gives us an opportunity to identify, what the makeup, what the mission, and what the, businesses that are doing business in our state, what they're made up of. So there is already existing relationships, whether you're receiving, government funding or not, is the point that I wanted to make.
Okay. Yes, Senator Augustine.
And I'll try to be brief, Madam Chair. First of all, underrepresented is clearly defined in here. Let's just address that. It's very clearly defined, number one. Number two, Senator Bidle mentioned, and it is important to reference Senate Bill 911 that she had in 2019, where it does have a different threshold, but it just says you have to report the number of women who are on the board of directors. It doesn't have any of this other stuff that you all are all talking about right now. It says you have to report it. Now, we may be saying we're applying a different standard, but it is the same thing, okay? And now we're just saying report on the underrepresented folks. I'm not exactly sure why it was okay in 2019, but now it's not okay in 2021 with this group of people. So I still would urge that we move this forward in the way that it has been presented. Thank you.
Okay. Senator Hershey, and then hopefully we can vote.
Madam Chair, I would just say I don't see where it states that any business is required to report anything.
Okay.
My colleague, I don't see where it says that. What do you mean? Where a business is required to report this information. It doesn't say they have to do anything. I mean, it says it puts the onus.
If that's the case, then why are you? And I'm fine with that.
Because I think that's what I'm trying to do is clarify that that's not the intent of the bill, is to report anything like you just said. My point is to clarify that and say that the intent was what Department of Commerce believes, what Greater Baltimore Committee says, is that only organizations that seek state contracts or grant would be impacted by the bill's provisions. So if if you don't take the amendment, okay, to clarify that, then you're still not getting the data that you believe you're getting, because this doesn't say the new requirements to do business in Maryland.
With all due respect, your amendment restricts, okay, so it doesn't change anything other than restrict the audience.
It
So-
clarifies
So
the-
it doesn't, so that would not change what's be above or before that.
Correct.
So I just,
Right.
I am still arguing that we need the broader information, however it may be formatted, understanding what you're saying. That is the difference between you and I on this, and that's it.
Right, no, I'm just saying that again, this was clarifying language requested by the Greater Baltimore Committee that has been involved in this bill in the House as well, too. And it was in response to the questions that were brought up yesterday when we talked, because the bill seems to be ambiguous here. And we wanted to clarify that unless you are getting the benefits, then you don't have to provide any information for this scorecard, okay? If we don't do that, there's still nothing in this bill that requires a business to provide Department of Commerce with any information. This is, these two items here are not a precursor to being able to do business in Maryland. And so all I'm trying to do is clarify that is not the intention with this bill that relates specifically to state benefits.
All I would say, just listening, colleagues, is that what the Greater Baltimore Committee believes is not reflective of the situation in the whole state in terms of many of them. They are the biggest businesses, the people on the Greater Baltimore Committee. I've spoken before the Greater Baltimore Committee in the place, and they are doing business interstate and worldwide in some cases. But in all cases, they are huge business. Just to pay the membership fee annually to be a member of the Greater Baltimore Committee, they're not your typical business. And so I'm just saying,
Sure, that a group that has been involved in this process, that is commenting specifically on this, I don't think the initiation fee is relevant to whether they should be able to provide their opinion or not.
all I'm saying is that their opinion on representativeness and on the need for the state to know what is going on with the business community, especially if you're looking for any handouts from the state, and which means all taxpayers, including underrepresented and underserved communities. I think they are not the ones to tell us how to deal with getting the information that is being sought in this bill. All right, Senator, Vice Chair.
But just again, just to clarify, so this is really to Senator Augustine's point. So if the goal here is to get as broad a swath of information, I guess the question then is this, is if you have no interest in seeking out any state contracts and you have no interest in and no benefit from a state grant,
You don't care.
then how are those folks, how are you going to, under this bill, get information about any of this? I guess that's the question I'm trying to get to. What's that? Well, I'm not. I mean, I'm with Senator Augustine about this idea of broad swath of info, but the bill, if you don't apply for any of this stuff, then there's nothing in the bill that says you have to give the state of Maryland squadouche as far as information. Right. So I guess that's the question on the table.
If you are applying.
Well, if you are, well, right. So that's where in the little quagmire circular thing here.
Also identified in the bill the regulations that need to be promulgated by, I think it was Commerce and some other agency here, adopt regulations that carry out this subtitle, state agency. There, in addition to the legislation, there's going to be requirements to identify whatever those regulations are, and those regulations might as well apply to any business here in the state.
Okay. Council just did could I just defer to, there is some language here that may speak to this, so just, I didn't notice it, and I'm really honestly just trying to get clarity on all this stuff.
Okay, if you go to page 4 of the reprint, you'll see that these entities, any entity required to submit a report to SSTAT that show they're in good standing with the state regarding,
Yeah,
Yeah,
well,
the
you said
business
it, I didn't say it
license.
was written, I didn't say it was actually written in this language here on the last page.
but yeah, they have to, if they're subject to, as Senator Hayes said, just to clarify, if they're subject to the requirements under the business regulation article, as part of their report that they're in good standing with the state, they would have to supply the information as specified by Commerce
Okay,
and
so-
the office.
Again, Senator Hayes made the point, I just didn't see the actual language here, so thank you, Dave.
If there's no further, did we actually have a motion before? Okay. Who did the second? Okay. Who did the second? Okay. All right, Senator Battle.
Because now I'm really confused. So do 430,000 companies have to create a scorecard? Okay.
No,
Thank
the
you.
companies
That's it.
aren't creating a scorecard. No. All right,
Then-
Senator Reedy?
This is honestly a question. When we're talking about the state creating a scorecard, it's an equity scorecard. Is it going to be an equity scorecard for every individual business, or is it just going to be an equity scorecard for the businesses in the state? You
I
understand what
thought
I'm?
this bill was about people who are seeking to do business with the state or to
Well,
get benefits
Well,
from
but
the
it's
state.
not now because it's not, respectfully, because we're saying, I'm asking the question honestly, what it says here in the bill, it says that the Department of Commerce and Office of Small, Minority, and Women Business Affairs shall develop, maintain, and post publicly a state equity scorecard that complies diversity data for each entity. We were trying to add an amendment, Senator Hershey is, to clarify that it is only for those receiving a state benefit. I understand that's the debate. So that equity scorecard, it says for each entity. So are we saying that the state is going to develop, maintain, and post publicly a state equity scorecard? So if I want to find out what Jim Bob's Hot Dogs is doing, or if I want to find out what Marriott's doing, now I know we exempted some businesses out, but we did, right? Or did we not? Yes, we did. We exempt. That's what the amendment did. Exempted some businesses out. Okay, so maybe Jim Bob's Hot Dogs doesn't, but whether it's Marriott or whether it's a medium-sized company like a heating and oil company or whatever that has enough employees to be, we're saying that the state of Maryland is going to have a searchable index created by employees that I can click on and find out what their equity scorecard is.
But I don't think that is the intent. If you really look at section 2 under E here on page 4, and be it further enacted that it is the intent of the General Assembly, I think that's what the whole point is, that if an entity receives a state benefit that is intended to be dispersed over more than 1 year, only the amount that will be dispersed in a one fiscal year shall count toward the $1 million threshold in a single fiscal year established. This whole thing is about businesses that want to do business with the state and get a state benefit.
Clarifying language that the amendment has and just say receiving a state benefit. If this is,
If they're seeking a state benefit, as opposed to just doing business with the public. But many businesses, and especially those represented by the Greater Baltimore Committee, are seeking to do that. Some of them, their main business is with the state.
If we all agree that the intent is, that's in the bill, the way that it is written, the intent is of the 430,000 businesses, less the ones that we've exempted, the only ones that will be on the scorecard are those that are seeking the state benefits that are in section, what is this, 19-106. Is that your intent? Okay, then that's fine. I'll withdraw the amendment.
Okay. Okay, Senator, who has it? Senator Kramer?
David, would you qualify for me if the amendment that we adopted is applicable to both Section C as well as Section D? So Section D would not apply to a single-member LLC, or would it?
It would not.
It would not apply.
It would not, no, because this applies to the entire section. So
Okay.
these entities, a limited liability company owned by a single member, a sole proprietor, or a privately held company, if at least 75% of the company, they would not be subject to this entire section.
Okay. All right, thank you.
Senator Feldman.
Okay, I'd move favorable on the bill with those two amendments we put on. I don't think
No,
we, did we?
I don't think we did it.
Okay, I don't know if we did. Okay, fair enough.
Okay, it's been moved and seconded. Now discussion on the motion. Senator Reedy?
I've got two questions for you, at least one question, maybe two. One is underrepresented community on page 2. It's defined. It is defined. I don't think I was questioning that before. I'm not sure if that was maybe a misunderstanding if I was not clear. Underrepresented community means a community whose members self-identify as, and it lists, self-identify. So what does that mean? I know what it means, but I'm saying, what does that mean legally? So if,
Well, it's saying what demographics what personal demographics they identify with. That's probably the way all of us determine what we consider ourselves to be.
okay, there's really no enforcement here to say if someone self-identifies as Native American or Hispanic or African American, you know, there's really no enforcement mechanism here, really. It's just saying if you say that someone on
I think
your
we
board,
all recognize that public resources are not equally distributed in all countries and in all states equally, and that people in these groups for our particular country tend to have less in terms of wealth, less in terms of education, less in terms of community services, and their requirements to be civic-minded and to pay taxes to the extent that they earn anything or have assets are equal to everybody else.
that's correct. I'm not asking that question. I'm just trying to be sure we understand how you're going to, I don't know if Senator Hayes can give some insight on how you're going to keep people from not following this.
Well, I don't think most people are going to change who they think demographically they are. In the first place, this isn't about most Marylanders in terms of who will do anything here. This is about those with companies that are seeking state benefits of some kind.
We have a United States senator that ran for president that got tremendous advantages by claiming to be Native American. So it's not a dull issue. There was a young woman who rose very high in the ranks of an organization claiming to be a totally different race than she was in a different state. I'm just asking, functionally, how this works, because we're now saying you are not eligible for state tax credits or state grant or state contracts over $1 million unless you have a more diverse board. How do we stop a business from not being honest?
Well, they work. It doesn't. In other places, it limits which businesses this would apply to. So many businesses, most businesses in Maryland aren't in this bill at all.
Okay.
All right, Senator Hayes.
Yeah, and I just wanted to respond to Senator Reedy. I think what I interpret when it says self-identify, those who are African-born that we may identify as African-Americans, typically they wish to be identified as black, not African-Americans, because their place of origin or their birth is actually the continent of Africa. So they don't identify, African-Americans has a different distinction than someone who's African-born. So I'm imagining that the idea of self-identifying is based on where that person like to, whatever identity that person most closely identify with.
I guess I think I knew what self-identify was, although that is helpful information. What I think I'm saying is, how do you know it? Self-identify. I know when you get a form and you say, what's your race? You obviously self-identify. Nobody checks you to see if you're Caucasian or not, in my case.
Right.
But if we're going to start putting parameters on who can get state contracts, I just was worried if you have a situation where it's not clear and somebody could say, yeah, we have a member of our board. They're not usually going to say they're African American if they're not, but they might say they're, Native American or Hispanic, Hispanic, a lot of people are really light-skinned Hispanic, oh, he's Hispanic. I mean, it's not, I was just trying to figure out how the state will prove that someone's not being truthful or is being truthful.
Right. Typically, like when you filling out these documents, whether it be a business form, whether it's the census or whatever, there's a bunch of legal documents that you have to identify in that case. Now, if there is a challenge to it, I would imagine they would have to call into question whatever evidence and how this person identified and dispute it. I'm not a lawyer, nor do I play one on television, but there's several ways of identifying who you are, whether it's even as simple as your driver's license. I think probably if someone was challenged and had to present evidence, those type of documents, legal documents of identity will come into question.
Okay. All right. Are we ready to vote, guys? All right. All in favor of the amendment, please raise your hand. I mean, of the bill is amended. Okay. Right. Okay. All right, what do you have? Okay, and Senator Battle will be right back. She went to the restroom. All right, those opposed, please raise your hand. Okay. Okay. Thank you.
Okay, and the last bill on the list, but you're not quite done yet because Nathan is up here now, is House Bill 1280. This bill is nearly identical to Senate Bill 857, which passed the Senate 45-0. It's the bill that establishes the Maryland Community Health Public and Safety Center of Excellence within the Governor's Office of Crime Prevention, Youth, and Victim Services. It's about implementing a specific model to to divert mentally ill folks away from the criminal justice system and to treatment. The main difference between this bill in front of you, the House bill and the Senate bill, is the House had some additional clarifying language and tweaked a few words. None of the substance of the bill has changed. So they're going to be making the same changes to the Senate bill, which is over there.
Okay, do we want just to do that by motion, I think?
Favorable if you support the bill and with the technical changes made by the House.
All right, Senator Benson? All right, okay, and the Vice Chair seconded. Any discussion on the motion? All in favor, please raise your hand. Okay, Senator Hayes, you ready? Okay. All right. Okay. All righty.
First, we have 4 concurrences to consider. First is Senate Bill 79. The House made a technical amendment to the function paragraph. The bill, both the Senate and House bill passed the chambers unanimously.
Move to concur.
All right. Can we get a second? We got a motion. Okay, all right. All in favor, please raise your hand. Okay, that looks unanimous. Okay.
The next concurrence is on Senate Bill 816. In this case, the House added that large reimbursers provision that would exempt or allow them to defer certain reimbursement payments to the UI Trust Fund. The Finance Committee added the same provision to the House bill.
Move to concur.
This is Senate Bill 816. Senate Bill 816.
Do we have a second? Okay. All in favor, please raise your hand. Okay. All right. If you're opposed, raise your hand. Okay. Thank you.
Third one is Senate Bill 846. This is also a technical change to conform the bills. The House made a fix to a small discrepancy. It makes certain positions full-time instead of part-time, but does not change the mandated appropriation required under the bill.
Okay. Do we have? Bill, we're trying to find out if you concur. Okay, all right. And you're a second? Yes. Okay. All right, all in favor, please raise your hand. All right, if you're opposed, raise your hand.
The final concurrence is on Senate Bill 444. So this is the task force, Making It in Maryland task force. The House struck the 3 additional members that the House added, or sorry, excuse me, that the Senate had added.
This is what, Senate Bill 444?
Correct. 444.
What were the 3 members that we had added?
The Finance Committee moved to add 1 representative from a small minority-owned manufacturing business currently in good standing with the Department of Assessments and Taxation as designated by the director or the Board of Directors of RMI. I believe that was from Senator West. The second is 1 representative from the Printing and Graphics Association Mid-Atlantic designated by the chair of that organization. And the final one is a representative of the Maryland Small Business Development Center.
Okay. But you say the House dropped the 3 members that we had added.
That
What
is
were
correct.
those
The
3
House removed those 3 members.
Who were they?
What do you mean, who were they? They had not been, the individual people had not been
the
appointed.
category. The ones that you're just talking about, is that?
Yeah, small
Okay, so we're
minority-owned
just putting them
manufacturing
back.
business,
Okay.
printing and graphics, and
Okay.
the Small Business Development Center.
All right, Senator Klossmeyer.
First of all, I'm shocked that they removed the minority piece of that. I mean, I just can't believe it. The print is like, well, I don't know why they wanted to print or whatever. But I think I got an email from somebody saying they said just let it go. Did you see the same one, Nathan? The same email?
I'm not sure which email you're referring
Well,
to.
no, from Rich Reinhardt, and
So-
he said let it go.
That email incorrectly stated that the 2 bills were identical. The confusion came because the change that the House made was not reflected on the
Okay.
website. It was only showing the Senate Bill 444 third reader as it passed the Senate.
Okay. So, I mean, but they didn't want it to go to conference. And if we put this back on, then that's what's going to happen, correct?
If you move to concur, then the House will likely make the same change to the House bill, which we have sent back. If you move not to concur, the bills will likely end up in conference.
And I say let Senator Feldman take it to conference committee. We have put our stamp on this bill, and Senator Feldman needs to march forward with the will of the Finance Committee at his back.
Thank you, sir. Thank you.
All right, I'm trying to see, are there some more lights on? Something from some directions I can't see. But.
It seems like there's a move. Not to concur. We want to
All
go
right.
to. So I'd move not to concur. Let's take battle with, unless somebody has some.
All right, we've got a motion not to concur. Do we have a second?
Yes.
Okay. All right, all in favor of the motion not to concur, raise your hand. Okay. All right, so it's not to concur.
I have every confidence in the vice chair.
Moving on then to the voting list on the first page, the first bill is Senate Bill 577. This deals with the Makerspace Initiative Pilot Program. There's a reprint in front of you from Senator McCray that removes the requirement for TEDCO to consult the Secretary of Commerce before adopting certain standards. Broadly speaking, the bill establishes the Makerspace Initiative Pilot Program within TEDCO, subject to specified requirements, including that TEDCO partner with the OpenWorks Center for Advanced Fabrication Technologies in Baltimore City. The Makerspace Initiative Fund is established in TEDCO for the administration of the program, and the governor is required to include an appropriation of at least $450,000 annually in the budget bill from fiscal 2023 to 2025.
Okay, so what is your pleasure? Okay, who moved? Okay, and you seconded. Okay. All in favor of the motion, please raise your hand. If you're in favor of the motion, raise your hand. Okay.
The next bill is House Bill 463. This is the Maryland Health Equity Resource Act. In this case, the bill has been sent over from Budget and Tax after being amended to...
Excuse me, colleagues. Remember, the public is trying to hear, we're trying to hear, and it's hard when we have the sidebars.
I'm trying to explain that to Senator August.
Okay, well,
The
part
bill,
of the explanation is
the bill as amended conforms to Senate Bill 172, which passed the Senate unanimously earlier this session.
okay. Any discussion on the motion? All in favor, please raise your hand. Okay.
Oh, yeah, for the next bill.
Okay. Thank you.
Madam Chair.
Yes.
Could we move this to the end of the calendar? Because I know Senator Bottle's on her way back. I think it would be good to have a full discussion here. Yeah, 768, if we could just move that to the end of the
We're going to
calendar.
move
Yes, thank you.
768 to the end of the calendar. Okay.
In that case, the next bill is House Bill 1004, which modifies the procedures for a Maryland chartered credit union to engage in any additional activities, services, or practices that are already authorized for federal credit unions.
Okay, any discussion? All in favor, please raise your hand. I guess so. So everybody here is, okay, read it, everybody's here, except for Battle is away. Okay,
The next bill is House Bill 1213. This was heard yesterday. Bill requires certain financial institutions to adhere to specified federal regulations when evaluating an application for a primary residential mortgage loan or an extension of credit, including the consideration of certain verifiable alternative indicators of creditworthiness, and those are history of rent or mortgage payments, history of utility payments, school attendance, or work attendance.
okay, any discussion on the motion? All in favor, please raise your hand. Okay, it's everybody here.
House Bill 1342 is a departmental bill that expands the eligible use of funds under the Partnership for Workforce Quality program to include training for new employees.
Okay, we've got a motion. Any discussion on the motion? If you're ready for the question, all in favor, please raise your hand. Thank you.
The last bill for consideration today is House Bill 768. That's Montgomery County Community Choice Energy Pilot Program.
Favorable.
There are amendments.
Senator Feldman, as amended.
Yeah, well, I was going to second that. I'll second that, but I know we'll have there is some discussion.
Okay, we've got a motion and a second.
Generally speaking, 768 establishes the Community Choice Aggregation Pilot Program and authorizes Montgomery County to form a Community Choice Aggregator beginning on April 1st, 2023. Under specified conditions, the PSC is required to adopt related regulations by that date, including those related to risk mitigation for standard offer service customers. The pilot program must begin on the date that the county gives notice to the PSC of its intent to form a community choice aggregator, or July 1st, 2023, whichever is earlier, and the program extends for 7 years after beginning, but terminates no earlier than June 30, 2030. The bill establishes a related work group and various study and reporting requirements. There's a reprint before you that incorporates amendments that are being offered by Senators Klausmeier and Senator Hershey. I think the easiest way to understand the amendments would be to first go through and discuss the ones that are being offered by Senator Klausmeier. The first change from Senator Klausmeier occurs on page 14 of the reprint. And you'll see in roughly line 12, this is related to customers who receive bill assistance. Senator Klausmeier would require the Commission to establish procedures for an electric customer who receives any bill assistance under federal or state rearage assistance administered by OHEP to, one, receive electricity supply through a community choice aggregator at or below the cost of the standard offer service for the customer's service territory, or to facilitate the transfer of the customer to standard offer service. The second change offered by Senator Klausmeier is on page 17. This terminates the program after 3 years rather than 7. And the final change being offered by Senator Klausmeier is on page 19, which is a declarative provision that says that the Montgomery County government shall be solely responsible for the costs associated with any stranded costs for electricity supply or generation owned by a community choice aggregator, and specifically to pay for any costs the Montgomery County government is responsible for under item 1. This addresses some concerns that were raised in the bill hearing that you could wind up with what's called broadly stranded costs as the county transitions into the aggregation model. The other changes in the reprint are offered by Senator Hershey. The first change from Senator Hershey begins on page 9, and that specifies that the notice required under this subsection related to the transition to the community choice aggregator has to include information on how to access the retail choice website hosted by the Public Service Commission. The second change is on page 11, which specifies that on applying for new electric service within the territory served by the community choice aggregator, the electric company shall offer residential and small commercial electric customers the immediate ability to contract with a retail electricity supplier. The next change and the final change from Senator Hershey is on page 15. It starts on page 14 and then moves over to page 15. And it specifies that the community choice aggregator or the community choice aggregator's electricity supplier shall offer supplier consolidated billing, and then requires that bills sent to electric customers that participate in the aggregation activities shall, and this is the part that's over on page 15, identify the retail electricity supplier if the community choice aggregator has contracted with a retail electricity supplier. So those are the amendments.
Okay, Senator Feldman.
Yeah, Nathan, I just wanted to clarify that you did get a letter of unanimous support from the Montgomery County Senate delegation on this local bill. Support for the bill as it came here without all the amendments that you just described. I just want to make sure you got that in the bill fold.
Yes, so both from the Senate delegation and the House delegation, and as was explained at the hearing, the elected officials in the county are also in support of the bill.
Thank you, Madam Chair.
Okay. So can we get a motion? Yeah. Yes.
It's a local bill, but is it really a local bill? I mean, if the costs end up being spread beyond Montgomery County, I just need a clarification for that as to whether or not that is something that can happen. I mean, if it is confined to Montgomery County, I get that. If there is a possibility that cost overruns are a problem, stranded costs would extend beyond Montgomery County, is this a local bill?
Well, I'll let counsel, the bill as constructed And I think we had testimony from the House sponsor, no ratepayer impact on anybody outside Montgomery. The costs would be borne by Montgomery, and it's a Montgomery County issue, and there's political accountability if all these bad things. So there was no testimony from where I sat at the hearing that any of the ratepayer impacts or any other consequence extended beyond the borders of Montgomery. Now, there may be other arguments, but that's what I heard the testimony to be.
All right, Senator Hayes
I don't have anything
and
to add.
Senator
That's correct.
Klossmeyer. I called on Hayes and Klossmeyer.
Hey,
I'm sorry. I was just waiting for my mic to come on. My question is similar to Senator Augustine's, and I'm in quite a dilemma because I'm still trying to learn like this energy stuff. And I typically look to Senator Feldman and Senator Hershey for guidance on these things. In this case, I know Senator Feldman, it's a local bill, so you got to protect local property. But it has been explained to me that there are some costs that could possibly go beyond the borders of Montgomery County, and some of the amendments help to address that. I'm not as well versed on it to articulate that, but could you give me an idea what they may be referring to and those costs that if there's not enough people participating or whatever may spill over into other jurisdictions?
As I say, maybe Nathan could expand again. And by the way, I would note that Baltimore City, among other things, has a resolution, I think, supportive of, they would like to try this out at some future point, along with Anne Arundel and all the rest. But I'll let Nate, because I don't have that much more to add beyond what I said to Senator Augustine's question, so I'll let Nathan ask something else.
So I don't have any specific information about costs that would extend outside of those who were affected by the aggregation in Montgomery County.
Okay.
I'm not familiar with and perhaps Senator Hershey is more familiar with the arguments, and I'd be
Well, I
happy to
saw
help.
Senator Klossmeyer first and then Senator Hershey.
thank you, Madam Chairman. I have a couple questions, and one is, I would like to hear from the Public Service Commission. We're asking that question if the cost is going to go out of Montgomery County. The only person that said that was the delegate who had the bill. And I personally do not know her, but that's it. But I would like somebody who really knows whether it's going to roll over into Prince George's County. That's my first comment, and I guess the second thing I want to know is the reason I put 3 years in there instead of 7 years. Even if Baltimore City wants to do it, you got to wait for 7 years. You're not going to get to do it because it's 7 years. And once 7 years is up, it's going to be implemented, and that's the way it's going to be. And that's why I have that amendment there. And I really think that if Montgomery County wants to do it, and just do it for 3 years, or also I have another amendment that has not come up yet that says it should maybe just do one of the municipalities. So I just have all those questions, and I would love for the Public Service Commission to come in here. And in reading the bill, it says they're going to have a work group. So I thought, well, that's good. And Senator Hershey had said that the day that we had sat through that 1 hour, and I'm supposed to believe everything she said, and the opposition got 2.5 minutes. And I'm just very concerned about this bill, as you can tell. But I just think that it's, when you're talking about 1.2 million people, and everybody keeps saying, all the elected say, everybody wants it. Well, if I lived in Montgomery County, I wouldn't even know what they were talking about if I wasn't an elected official. So I think the bill, as I said, it said there was a work group in the bill. I thought, well, good, but the work group is not for here, and we have not done any work on this whatsoever. And I think it's unfortunate when you have a 15 or 16 page bill that you can't even take a look at it, because the county has it locked in. That is not right, because it could affect the whole state.
Senator Hershey, Senator Kramer, and then Senator Hayes.
Yeah, thank you, Madam Chair. I have to agree with my colleague that just spoke there. This is a massive bill, and, again, I know we're looking at this as a local bill, but there certainly can be effects that are statewide. And to answer a little bit of Senator Hayes's questions regarding stranded cost, obviously this is an opt-out. So everybody is auto-enrolled into this program, whether they want to be or not. Okay, so they're all in, and then the county goes out and procures energy, and they might, as we heard from the county executive, might decide that renewables, a portfolio of renewable energy is more important than cost. They could come back to all of their people that are auto-enrolled into this and say, here's now how much it costs. And they would go into contract, the county would go into contract with these other.
Wait a minute now. Let
Yeah,
him finish.
just, I'm sorry, so the county goes into the procurement, they probably hire a broker or some consultant to do that. They go out and procure, but I think to answer your question, what you would say, who decides? This is very specific. The politicians of Montgomery County are deciding for the entire county what's the most important portion of, or diversification of the energy mix. They are going to go out and say, we've got a goal for 100% renewable, and this is our way to achieve it. So they're going to go out and say, we want to make sure that we buy renewable energy, and they're going to try to do it as cost effectively as they can. But if they don't, the entire county is locked into that cost because it was they had to opt in. The concern at stranded costs could be, what if the residents say, you know what, I don't really want to put my money where my mouth is. I talk a big game about renewables, but when it comes to an extra 2 cents a kilowatt hour, I'm not that excited about it. I'd rather lower my cost. And so they decide, I'm either going to go out through retail choice and find my own energy, or I'm just going to roll back into standard offer of service. The stranded cost can come in the fact that says Montgomery County has already procured all of this energy. Now what do they do with it if they lost customers? So that's one of the concerns that are out there when you have a pilot that is this massive. And my colleague is right. If we really want to take a look at this, and the vice chair is right too, other jurisdictions are expressing interest in this, but they're certainly waiting to see how it happens. We might want to take a look at a Tacoma Park or a Rockville or a Gaithersburg, those municipalities, to take a look at it, because all you're looking at is for a defined geographic area that you could take all of those ratepayers and auto-enroll them into the program. So long explanation, but I think that's why there are a number of issues that need to be addressed with this, and it's not as easy as just accepting, a 19-page bill. And Madam Chair, again, I just want to clarify, because Senator Klossmeyer is right. When this bill hearing was going on, I had a number of questions, and respectfully, you asked me if I could get together with the bill sponsor and ask some of them, and I have communicated with her. But at the same time, I also thought that, and said at that time, can we do a work group on this? Can we, get some of the experts on board? And as, again, Senator Klossmeyer said, can we get the chairman of PSC to come in and really explain this to us to make sure that we understand? I understand Montgomery County wants it, but I think we all have an obligation to make sure that we're going forward with the correct policy. And that's it. Thanks.
Okay. Let's hear, we'll come back around. Let's hear from Kramer, Hayes, Klossmeyer, and I have a recommendation, maybe.
Thank you, Madam Chair. And once again, I will remind the committee that this is in fact a local bill, and it will not have implications outside of Montgomery County. And the fact is that this has been done in hundreds of other jurisdictions, and there has been no indication of this sudden boogeyman of stranded costs coming back to haunt anyone where it has been done elsewhere. So I get it. The retail energy suppliers are looking to spread their amendments around this committee room because they don't want the bill. I get it. But we need to stay focused on the fact that beyond the retail energy suppliers, this bill applies to Montgomery County. Yes, the reason that it is an opt-out is to ensure maximum participation, and as a consequence, the very best rates, because when doing it on such a large scale, there will be an opportunity for Montgomery County residents to benefit by the reduced costs of energy in our county. If other jurisdictions want to go to the retail energy suppliers, that's fine. You all can do that. In Montgomery County, we're going to be giving our residents the opportunity under this legislation to actually invest in clean energy, renewable energy, and I understand there are members of this committee who abhor the notion of anything other than fossil fuels and ensuring that we maintain our demand for fossil fuels and that we continue to pollute our state with fossil fuels. But this is, Madam Chair, this is Montgomery County seeking to do for Montgomery County. And the point that, yeah, everybody in Montgomery County is all in with our elected leaders shows that we are unified in the effort to move forward with this legislation. This is not about let the retail energy suppliers derail a bill that has been worked on now for several years. It started out as a statewide bill. It has been restricted and limited to Montgomery County. The notion of we need to have the Public Service Commission come before us and tell us there was a bill hearing. Public Service Commission did not oppose the bill. The office of the OPC, representing the interests of the people, supports the bill. So this notion that we're doing harm to either in Montgomery County or out of Montgomery County is a red herring. And I hope the members of this committee will respect the will of the people of Montgomery County to make a determination as to whether they want to support renewable and green energy, to pull back from our carbon footprint, and if we want the best rates available in doing so, which will likely happen.
Okay, well, you've made your position real clear. I do have a couple of questions, and I'm coming to my colleagues. One is, have the residents of Montgomery County in general been informed that this was under consideration and that they would be able to opt out?
This will all be part of, under the legislation.
No, I'm just asking, do they know it as you are voting on it on their behalf? Do they know about it?
Madam Chair, I don't know whether anyone in any of our jurisdictions is aware of the things that we are doing here, Madam Chair. And I think if you're asking that a question, let's apply that question to every single bill on this voting list today. Did the residents of your jurisdiction know that you were voting for X for collective bargaining in Baltimore County libraries? How many of those residents in Baltimore County, Madam Chair, are aware that that was happening on this voting list
I'm not
today.
asking you to argue. I just want to know one way or the other. The question is probably going to come up on the floor. And I'm just asking. I want to be informed. The other question that I had, I forgot by now, so I'm going to go to Hayes and to Klossmeyer. And if I remember it, I'll ask another question.
Well, Madam Chair, since I didn't get a chance to conclude before
Well, you know,
our discussion just now, I'm going to ask the committee to resist the amendments and support the bill as introduced and and respect the fact that this is a local bill. Thank you, Madam Chair.
let me ask you this then. If we held the bill one day so that people who have questions or that they want to check with the PSC, they could do it.
Or they want to check with the lobbyists, with the retail suppliers
Okay.
to do what they can. I get it.
Okay, all right. I called on Klossmeyer and I think it was Hayes and then Reedy, Augustine and Hershey.
Oh, thank you, Madam Chairman. And, you know, I just, you know, we talk about the Baltimore County bill, the collective bargaining bill. There were 16 amendments before it came, and we had all kinds of workshops just on that little bitty bill. And this bill is, for me, it's huge, and I think we really need to give it some attention. And I keep hearing how the delegate has been working on this for 3 years. Well, I didn't know it. And I was also told if I had been in economic matters, I could have heard some of the different testimony because there were many more people talking about it. But I had to tell the people that told me that I'm not in economic matters. I'm in the Senate Finance, and we haven't had the same amount of people talking, the same courtesy of people giving their against it and for it. So that's one thing. And the other amendment that I had talked about was the amendment, and I think Nathan said it was on there, to require the aggregation program to provide electricity at below the SOS cost if the customer is receiving OHEP assistance. It was basically like the bill that we passed that Senator Washington had. And I still want to know if the county government will be responsible for any stranded cost, and that's what this clarifies my intent. I want to make sure that nobody's caught without the money.
Okay.
And wait a minute, one more thing. Not everybody knew about the library bill, the collective bargaining bill, but it's not going to affect anybody but the librarians. With this bill, it's going to affect 1.2 million people. Thank you.
Okay, Senator Hayes, Senator Augustine, Senator Hershey, and Senator Feldman. And then afterwards, I would like to, let's just hold it a day so that anybody who needs to check with anybody can do that. And when next time we sit together, we'll go ahead and vote. Okay.
Thank you, Madam Chair. And with all due respect to the Baltimore City Council, to the Vice Chair's point that there was a resolution passed, I'll let you know, here in the General Assembly, we're very fortunate to have a diverse group of experts on different issues. The City Council does not have that luxury that we enjoy here, and so just for note, that does not weigh on me. I think your opinion and those of this committee and our committee staff have a lot more bearing on the issue. The question that I am concerned about, and thank you, Senator Hershey, for taking the time to explain what I found it very hard to articulate. But there is, a part of Senator Klossmeyer's recommendations. It's a list of them, but the one just simply says that Montgomery County would bear all of the costs. And of the amendments that she have listed, that's amendment number 1, and the last one that's labeled W. All the other stuff in between, I'm not even sure if it even get to a point that I even am concerned about. If we are going to hold this bill, I would just ask that Vice Chair and those who are familiar with the legislation provide me some feedback on if that would be acceptable, especially given the fact that it's been stated that there is no intention for this to spill over into other counties.
Okay, Senator Augustine,
Okay.
and then Senator Hershey.
All right. Thank you, Madam Chair. First of all, some of the characterizations in here are a little bit much, I must say. I'm supportive of this, and I would hate to be pushed away by some of the rhetoric and some of the sort of inflammatory discussion that's going in here as I look to protect the people of Prince George's County. And that's important to me, that I am sure that the people of Prince George's County are not negatively impacted by this. I don't think that's an unreasonable thing to ask, that be the case on something that is as large as this. It is also a part of it, and one of the questions that I would like to have answered along those lines is, this is going to take a significant amount of the generation purchase power away from Pepco, which of course this is impacting us. I do want to know, and by the way, I am supportive, as I said, but I got to have good answers for this, because I have to answer and be very sure that these stranded costs and things like that, they are in fact going to be borne by the people of Montgomery County. I don't think it's unreasonable to ask these questions. This is a very significant bill. I am supportive, but I just need answers to the questions. Thank you.
That's really one reason why I want to hold it a day, so everybody can go to whatever expert, including the PSC or the Office of People's Counsel or wherever, to ask your particular questions before we come back. Senator Hershey.
Thank you, Madam Chair. Just very specifically on what you just asked, I've already asked that to PSC. Okay? Their response, it's hard to predict, but could drive up costs for other counties in Pepco's service territories. Now, I don't know how everybody else needs to hear that, but to specifically answer your question, that was their response. And Madam Chair, that's why I've said, this is a bigger issue than to just be able, and my colleague might believe me or not believe me. I'm not saying that, but the fact of the matter is I asked that question. And does everybody in here have to ask that question, or do we have the Public Service Commission at the table here and discuss this?
I'm glad that you have asked. I'm glad you're reporting.
Right.
I just think everybody ought to have whatever degrees of freedom they need for 24 hours.
You're right, Madam Chair, and I'm not trying to take away from
but I think that was...
that by any means.
All right, the final say, since we're going to, if you guys will agree, I'll hold it for 24 hours. I want to hear from the Vice Chair.
First of all, I support the hold for all the reasons. I mean, I completely hear Senator Hayes, Senator Augustine. You absolutely should do your due diligence. So I think that's completely makes sense. But if I might just make a few points just beyond what Senator Kramer made about the 9 states already enable their locals to do this. The OPC, which protects ratepayers, is supportive of the bill. Who was not opposed to the bill? Pepco didn't weigh in. And by the way, the PSC, with all respect, had nothing to contribute in opposition or anything else at the bill hearing, or there's nothing in the committee full. But 2 other quick thoughts. I just want to make the point, when you look at the bill, there's extensive vetting by the Public Service Commission. If you look through here, there's reporting, there's analysis, to make sure that what's being represented here does not spill over. I mean, that there's an annual review. Just look through the bill and see what's involved here with regulations over a period of a couple of years, number one. On this issue of the stranding costs, I just want to be clear. When you talk about stranding costs, you're talking about usually like decommissioning nuclear power facilities. What we're talking about in Montgomery County under this vision are solar panels on parking lots, some landfills. So with all respect to the boogeyman about stranded costs, that's really not what we're talking about here. And finally, Madam Chair, I do want to make the point about local input. Now, we had public hearings in Montgomery on this, but more importantly, under the bill, nothing happens until our local county council has public hearings and have to pass a law. So this does not make it happen. It has to happen at the Montgomery County Council level. Anybody who wants to weigh in opposition and raise all the issues that are being raised, that will happen in Montgomery County, and the county executive and the county council will have to make a call. They'll be politically accountable if things go south. The political process at work. So yes, very much before this actually launches, Montgomery County local government will have to actually pass a law to do it. And so I just want to get that on the table as we're talking.
Very clear
Yeah.
that you're looking out for average citizens in Montgomery County, and they will have their say, and they will know before it can be implemented. I think members that are concerned about whether there might be stranded costs that would impact surrounding jurisdictions, especially those in the PEFCO service territory, I think they've got a right to just check that out. Senator Hershey, and then maybe we can put this to bed till
Just
24 hours.
very quickly on that, all it states in here is that the county can own generation. It doesn't specifically says that they have to own just solar. They can own any form of generation that they want underneath this bill. I'd also say that with regards to the Office of People's Counsel, their testimony had support with amendments. They had 9 different amendments. Now, I don't know if every one of those were accepted in the House or not. When they came and testified, I know I had a number of questions, and I honestly don't believe he responded necessarily accurate on some of the questions that I asked him. But just to say that PSC or OPC is okay with this, keep in mind, when the bill first came out, they had 9 different amendments. And so whether they've all been accepted or not, I don't know. But I just think it's a little broad to say they're A-okay with this.
Okay. I'm glad that we've had some time to discuss it, and you know what people's concerns are. If we go to the floor with the bill, you don't want all this all over again. You want the colleagues right here to understand the bill, whether they agree with it or not, and to know that the right questions have been asked and that they've had an opportunity. I'm sure he will. I'm sure he will. Yeah, because he's diplomatic, and we need somebody diplomatic on the floor. Okay. Is there anything else for the good of the order? What else we got?
I'm just honest.
Okay. All right, guys. We'll find a time tomorrow, and everybody work on getting your questions answered in the meanwhile.